We're back. I had just enough time to run upstairs, get a couple bites of the chicken leg, couple forkfuls of peas, and we're back. The return has been announced. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us live, you weren't here for the last stream 5 minutes ago. Anthony Mantha has been traded here in trade deadline season to the Vegas Golden Knights in exchange for a second and a fourth round pick in 2024. So 2 draft picks going back Washington's way in exchange for Anthony Mantha, who's been a very efficient player this season. The breakdown now is going to be a little bit faster since we can go ahead and skim over what we already said last time. But if you're joining us for the first time and you weren't here last time, it's instant reaction and analysis now for this deal. So a second and a fourth coming to the Washington Capitals in exchange for Anthony Mantha, who's been having a good year. It's been a tough little stretch for Mantha, but he is finding as well. Excuse me, it's going to be a second and a fourth. A second being in 2024 and the fourth being in 2026. Darren Dreger just correcting himself right there. All right, very good. So that is the official return on that. Now we know. Very, very good. So as Jay Fresh says here, I think this was a good way to put it. Mantha is a great example of how disappointing doesn't equal bad. He was at one point supposed to be such a great piece. Pierre Maguire once said he was the next 50-goal scorer. His tenure in Washington was disappointing because he wasn't a top 6 scorer. But over 3 seasons in Washington, he had a 53% goal share, expected goal share at 5v5 at a time when the team as a whole had 49% in each. So the type of player who always let down fans because he doesn't play big, doesn't score 30 goals. But while it may not always be pretty, he does win his minutes. I think that's a good way to kind of explain what kind of a player Anthony Mantha is. So we go back to the player card that we had on him. And by the way, it's full retention, full salary, no retention on this trade right here. If we go back to who Anthony Mantha is right here, right now, who is this player that Vegas is getting? Mantha is a two-way scoring forward who puts up goals at an absurdly efficient rate. This year, shooting at over 22%, 20 goals, playing just 14 minutes per night this year. A big player who notoriously does not play a physical game, but still pushes play in the right direction. Over the last 3 seasons, if you look at his projected wins above replacement percentile, the weighted average data, he is in that 87th percentile. He is very high up there. Take it with a grain of salt with the ice time that he plays. But when you look at the even strength offense, especially the even strength defense, yes, he's not playing with the highest levels of competition. And yes, he's not playing with the highest levels of teammates, but his finishing has taken a huge jump after like 11 goals last season. His defense has taken a good jump as well. The offense has gone down, but his worth, his value has gone up. And that's what matters the most for Vegas, who needs a good defensive forward in their lineup right now. That's really what they need right now. That really seems like more value than they gave up for Barbashev. Kind of. They gave up Zach Dean for Barbashev. They gave up a second and a fourth for Mantha. I think it's comparable, but I see what you're saying. So Vegas Golden Knights, they had a lot of picks to play with. They moved their second in 2024. Exactly what I said was the return. I said guaranteed the return will have to include a 2024 second because that's the pick that Washington will want to get back. So they get a second in 2024, now giving them 5 picks in the first 3 rounds of this draft. And then on top of that, they get a fourth in 2026, their first pick of their own in the 2026 draft. I think we take those. I think it's a win-win on both sides. I think he was an expiring player. I think the Capitals are going in that direction now. I think they're, both they and the Penguins in the Metropolitan Division are starting to think, all right, it's time to start looking to sell a little bit. They're 28, 23, and 9. They've had a good year, but I don't think they think they're going to be catching up to, the Flyers, the Hurricanes, those teams for sure. So they're ready to just say, let's start selling. They get some draft pick value, and they can still be a good team with the understanding if they're going to say Mantha's walking anyways, let's get some picks now and get ready to run it back again next season. It's difficult to figure out what the Caps are really doing. They have Ovi for 2 more years. Wilson's on his big extension. Strome's on his big extension. You got John Carlson for a couple more years. Rasmus Sandin's a great young defender. Are you ready to go with Darcy Kemper for the next 4 years? I don't know. So that could be a whole nother discussion for another day. What are the Washington Capitals doing? What are they going to be looking to do long term? Now, where does Anthony Mantha fit in this Vegas lineup? I would think that he finds a spot in the middle 6, either bumping down Amadio or Cotter, probably down to the 3rd, 4th line, bottom 6. I would think they try to give middle 6, if not top 6 minutes to Mantha, who has really thrived this year in a limited role, as we see his ice times continue to go down over the last few years. 18-15, 17-45, 15-10, 14-13. This year averaging 14.09 per night. Caps will be in no man's land in the standings, late lottery selection, unfortunately, yeah. And maybe, Dan, maybe the Caps need GM data for our next series. Maybe. So just to show that, he's scoring, last year 11 goals in 67 games. This year's 20 in 56, shooting from 9.2% to 22.2%. So he's been incredibly efficient. The Vegas Golden Knights will want to capture that little bit of lightning in the bottle. It's crazy that the value that the Capitals gave up, although Vrana didn't turn out, Vrana had his own struggles and it didn't work out, that could have been deadly. So it turned out being that Vrana, Panik, a first and a second. The first that became Wyatt Johnson, by the way, Johnston, and Dallas had gotten that pick through the just a draft pick swap, I see. But the first that became Wyatt Johnson and Dmitry Bushelnikov. This is who Belshnikov. Santa, but just to say what a cost that he demanded from the Red Wings. Look at it from 2021 April to now 2024 March. That value is very different. Second and a fourth. I don't think he's that much different of a player either. I think it's just that he's not the player that teams or fans have hoped that he would be. Like I said at the beginning, it might not always be the prettiest type of hockey. You're not being a 30-goal scorer in the top 6, but Anthony Mantha has incredible value, especially if you're going to keep him in a middle 6, even bottom 6 role. He does what he does very well. The perception of player, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of discussion on that value, what they got back here. It's a second in 2024 and a fourth in 2026, going to at 50% retained. Interesting. So more and more continues to come out on this deal. So it was Mantha for a second and a fourth in 2024. Now it's Mantha at 50% retained for a second in 2024 and a fourth in 2026. We just learned about that the last few seconds here. So half retained. So if we look at the Vegas Golden Knights now, I'm not sure if it would be refreshed. They had 7.276 in cap space due to their LTIR space. Now, if we refresh here, is that fixed yet? Doesn't look like it. No, not yet. He's on the team, but their salary retention hasn't been calculated. So 5.7, half of that is 2.85. So 7.276 minus 2.85. That leaves Vegas with 4.426 here. That's enough to get Gensel at 50% retained or even 75% retained. But for sure, if Vegas could re-sign Mantha at 2.5, 3 million, I think Mantha's worth into the threes. But if they could re-sign Mantha to a good deal, I think that he fits Vegas Golden Knights quite well. This is a deal that a trade that really fits Vegas. And I could see Mantha being a player who really fits Vegas as well. Now, Vegas has a lot to do this offseason. It would be expiring deals for Mantha, Max Chassot, Chandler Stevenson, Alec Martinez. So there's definitely a lot to do in Vegas in this offseason. But I could see Mantha being a value guy that they get back into the 3 millions who plays that middle 6 role. I don't think Mark Stone's going to be ready for the playoffs. A lacerated spleen. Of course, everyone's clowning on them. LTIR circumvention, cap circumvention, Vegas. But he has a lacerated spleen. Cut him a break. Come on. It's a tough situation for Vegas to be in. I think that they did the right thing in acquiring a good, sizable winger. Doesn't throw the body around, I don't think, in the same way as Mark Stone does, but kind of like a Mark Stone comparable, a big right wing, two-way forward who's going to be stronger on that defensive side. Obviously doesn't score at the rate that Mark Stone does, but still kind of that replacement. And if Mark Stone were to be able to come back in the lineup, that would be that much better. So those are my quick instant reaction thoughts on that, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's a good deal for both sides. 20 goals, 34 points on the year for Anthony Mantha on a 50-point pace right now, which would be a career high. He'll get to see increased ice time as well. He's about a hit per night kind of guy, but what's really good is the time on ice and the goal efficiency with that time on ice, shooting at 22.2%. If you look really deep into the what do we got here? The metrics and all that. This year, 55.1% in the Corsi 4 percentage. On ice goals for versus on ice goals against. 51 goals for, 33 against. So that's at all even strength power play, 5-on-5, 4-5-on-4, everything going on. So I would say these numbers do look better than what we've seen in the past. Well, in the past, last year's abysmal season that I would think that it was. Back soon for Wenberg. It could be. We could be back soon for Wenberg. On ice goals against per 60 versus on ice goals for per 60. You see the differences here. Really a negative value, 2.5 to 3.3. Great jump back, then back down 2.5 to 2.9. This year, 3.9 to 2.5. That's a great difference right there. If the Rangers got Kane and Tarasenko last year, I don't think it's possible for Vegas to get Gensel. No, I don't think it's impossible, especially with Mantha now coming in at 50% retained. It wouldn't be impossible for Vegas. I'm just not sure what they'd give up. I don't know if the Penguins want the types of prospects that the Caps would have to give. So Mantha at 2.85 has been updated now. So now we see Vegas with 4.426 in their cap space to play around with. Prediction for landing spot on Gensel, hard to say. I could see Vancouver being a very serious one. I could see even I could see the Rangers trying to play around, but that's a tighter cap situation over there. So, and we refreshed one last time with Washington. Yeah, Brisson was in there as well. I had mentioned him last stream. We initially went live. Brisson, Chaika, Cormier, all of those guys who are prospects. I'm not sure if they'd be exactly what the Penguins are looking for in a big return. If I'm getting a late first, I want a really kind of like blue chip type prospect for a guy like Jake Gensel, but we'll see what they can end up getting. So the Washington Capitals get back their they get back a second round pick, fourth in 2026, no conditions, a straight up 2 picks right there. They're happy to have that. Their deadline cap space increases to $5.892 million. They can weaponize that in any way they want. We'll see what Washington continues to do. Will they continue to sell? That's a good question. I don't think they have many pieces to sell. I don't know if they want to move Pacioretty. I think with a no movement clause, I doubt Pacioretty wants to move after finally getting back to full health. So I don't think I see much selling. Joel Edmondson, maybe. I don't know. I don't see much more happening for Washington unless they take back some contracts and help to broker some deals and pick up other late picks in future seasons. Again, what is Washington trying to do right now? I don't know. But Vegas can still definitely be players. They have 8 out of 9 for their next 3 years of top 3 rounds of picks. First and third, then first, second, third, with 4.4 plus million to play around with. I would say that Vegas is not done yet. So in current cap state, Mantha at 2.85 chews up nearly half of the 6 point. At least roughly 3.45 million to spend, but could get creative with other roster moves, of course. Be surprised if they don't spend it. Yeah, they'll definitely do something there. Vegas will definitely have more to do. And Vegas still has a lot of picks going on. So that about does it, ladies and gentlemen. A 2-part breakdown in this one for the Washington Capitals and Vegas Golden Knights. And just one last thing I forgot to look at was Anthony Mantha in his prime. Jay Fresh has shared a good card about Anthony Mantha in his prime. Am I going to see it? No, I got to go and search it up now. Sorry, apologies. Just bear with me for a second. If you have another couple minutes to spare, bear with me for a second, because he was great. What he's doing now is not, unheard of. His offense now is great to see. His offense was really good, then horrible, and now it's come back to pretty solid. So that's always been a bit of an up and down type of thing. But the game that he plays, thank you, SB, appreciate you joining along for it. The game that he plays has not changed. If it works like that. And with Mantha, it has pretty much always worked. There you go. He's in his, if you look at the 1920 season, he was in that 92nd percentile, playing first line minutes, 96th even strength defense, 94th even strength offense, 94th even strength defense, goals and primary assists per 60, well above average. Never been a big power play guy, never been always playing with the best players, but at that year he was, I would say. Playing against the best players maybe. But his finishing, of course, has taken a downward turn and a big jump back up. The defense it's always been up there. Took a steep dive a little bit for his standards. Now it's back up to what it should be at, like an all-time best pretty much. And the offense has always been pretty steady up there at what it is. It is for what it is. That's what I'm saying. Look at it. You got to keep in mind that it's for the percentiles. It's not saying who has scored the most. It's saying when you look over the weighted average data, that's what you have to take that into consideration. So his value as a player has never dipped below like 60% for the 60th percentile, I mean, for wins above replacement. He has always provided value to the player, the team that he has played on, but fans' perceived value has definitely dropped when he hasn't put up the big numbers that teams thought that he would put coming out of the QMJHL. I remember, again, third time I say it, Pierre Maguire always said it. I always remember him saying this, that Anthony Mantha was the NHL's next 50-goal scorer, and then he never scored more than 25. This year's on pace to beat that, I believe, but we'll see what happens with Anthony Mantha. So I think this is a great deal for Vegas. I think this is the type of trade they needed to do. I think it's the appropriate amount of value that Washington gets back, especially for an expiring UFA. Move him now. Don't wait and risk it in the market. Get your second, get your fourth, no conditions, no need to have any third teams or anything. You retain 50%. It's all good. I think there's a win-win for both sides, and I would love to see Mantha stay in Vegas longer term. So what does it mean for Washington heading into the deadline? Who could Vegas be looking to still buy on? Who are they still being players for? Who wins this trade and why? Leave all those thoughts down here in the comments on YouTube. Leave a like, and of course, do not forget to subscribe. Turn on the notifications, because when trades go down, we have it live. Breaking news, instant reaction analysis for every trade going towards the trade deadline, and live coverage on trade deadline day, March 8th, Friday, from about 12 to 4 p.m. Eastern. That's it. We had another one, Joe. And then because the return wasn't announced, they said it could be up to an hour. We stopped it. And we're back here kind of for part 2. But we've broken it all down now. I think Mantha gets a bad rap. I think that he is a solid player who does what he does very well. And he'll thrive, I think, in that environment in Vegas, whether it be for one season or longer, or the end of the season or longer. So thanks everyone for being here. I appreciate you taking the time to enjoy the breakdown. Have a lovely rest of your evening. We'll be live whenever the next trade happens, and we're also going to be live on Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern for the continuation of our expansion NHL 24 franchise mode series. Have a great night, and we'll talk soon. Thanks for being here.